Good morning. My name is Don Michaelman, and I want to welcome you to the December 14th, 2023 public hearing of the City of Prescott Planning Commission. If you could check your cell phones and make sure they're on mute or off, would appreciate that. Would like to, before we do our introduction of the commission members, is recognize Tom Riley, and that will now be vice chair of the commission, and we have a new member, Tom Davis, joining us on this. And we will go ahead and have the commission members introduce themselves and start with Jim. That Jim.
Too many Jims. Good morning. Happy holidays, Jim Klazuski.
Good morning. My name is Tom Hutchison. Nice to see you all, and Merry Christmas.
Good morning and Merry Christmas, Tom Riley. And by the way, if you want to get anybody's attention on the commission, just yell out Tom. Somebody will answer.
Or Jim.
Good morning, Tom Davis. I'm deeply honored to be here. Thank you.
Jim Whiting, good morning and Merry Christmas.
This is an open public hearing and is being videotaped by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media. The public, local cable and/or radio stations may also rebroadcast. The number of commission members present is 6. It will require a majority vote of those present to pass a motion. Members of the public, when called upon, are required to state their name and address for the record so we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them later if need be. We'd also like to recognize that our Mayor Good is attending here, Councilmember Rusing, and Councilmember Gambogi. It's tough to say council member versus commission member, so Ted, I'm going to have to work on that, okay? This is a continuation of prior discussions we had concerning the single item on the agenda. The reason we did this was we requested additional information from the applicant. We are looking for new information. We're not necessarily looking to have what has been presented to us before presented to us again on that part. So, Tammy, would you like to start?
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman, members of the Commission. Tammy DeWitt, Community Planner. Oh, yeah, sorry, minutes.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
First item on the agenda is the review of the November 9th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If no correction, is there a motion concerning the minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Jim Klazuski.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, for the purpose of the minutes, I'll abstain.
That'd be fine. Sarah?
Commissioner Riley,
Approved.
Commissioner Whiting,
Approved.
Commissioner Hutchison,
I approve.
Commissioner Klazuski,
Approve.
Commissioner Davis,
Abstain.
Commissioner Michaelman.
Approved. Next item on the agenda will be SUP 23-002, special use permit to allow for the construction of an 80-foot wireless tower next to the existing water tank, which is a request to exceed the allowed height limitation for the zoning district of 35 feet. Location is APN 800-20-034S 3599 Williamson Valley Road. Zoning Rural Estate 2 acre, RE 2 acre. Applicant is Smart Link Communications LLC. And now, Tammy.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission. So this is on a 204-acre Arizona State Land Trust property. And this gives you kind of surrounded by state trust land to the north and west, and then BLM to the east. Today, from the Southview subdivision, we've gotten signatures or letters from 61 people representing 48 parcels. This is kind of a map that shows what we've gotten to date. So at the November 9th meeting, it was deferred to address 3 items the commission asked for. One was the RF coverage maps for the different heights, 100 foot, 80 foot, 60 foot, and 40 foot. We asked for 35 feet since that's the height that's allowed by the zoning district. Then also the height of the existing existing tower there in the water tank. The existing communication tower is 60 feet to the top of lattice. Then there's a whip on top, and that's probably about 15 or so feet on top of that. And then the water tank is 30 feet to the highest point, the bubble on top. That's the highest point, according to our water resources engineers. And then there was also how many homes can be seen from see the tower from Southview. That one's kind of a hard one because we can't ask them to go to everybody's property and stand on their property, see who can, we can't have them trespass. So we did the best, the applicant did the best he could with the renderings that was provided. So first we have the one that was provided at the beginning for the 100-foot tower. So this is the site plan that you've seen before, the 80-foot tower. So this is for the 100-foot monopole from one of the views. And these are the ones that you got originally in your first packet. And then this is the only one we have from the neighborhood. On the right-hand side, it shows the 100-foot tower and what it could look like as a monopole. And then for the others, they gave just the 2 sites because from the proposed location, it wouldn't be able to be seen from the neighborhood. So we have for a 60-foot tower, what it would look like off Pioneer Parkway. And then for a 40-foot monopole, and these were in your packets. So then it was also about the RF coverage. So this is the existing coverage without the tower. So the proposed tower is kind of in the center, and to the north, where you see the greenish blue colors, those are the areas they're trying to infill the coverage. Red is the best coverage, and the green and blue are lower coverage. The idea is to connect to the north on Williamson Valley Road on the outer loop. You have the huge pine tree on top of the hill. It's known kind of as Hunt Hill across from the country store. That was an AT&T tower that was approved by the Board of Supervisors in 2019. So it's trying to connect up with that tower that's up there. So this shows the infill with the 100-foot tower. That was in your original packets with the original proposal. So this shows with an 80-foot tower the coverage that it could span. And then we go with the 60-foot and then a 35-foot, which you asked for. So as you see that as the tower gets lower, there's less coverage in that north area, which was the main area it's trying to cover. So the SUP process allows for the council to approve tower heights. That's what we're looking at as the height of the tower. This RE2 acre zoning allows for a 35-foot max height. So the requested 80-foot tower has to go through the special use permit process. And that concludes my presentation. I'm free to answer any questions you may have. The applicant is here, and then I think we're going to Matt.
Any questions for staff? Tom?
Yeah, I do. Tammy, Tom here. Tom H.
You better specify which Tom.
2 things. First of all, what is the target coverage? What are you trying to accomplish? What area are you trying to penetrate?
And that's I'll defer that to the applicant when he comes up to speak.
Okay. The second one then is do you have any detail on the service road that would go to this proposed site?
The road is already there. It's a 20-foot easement that we have, the city already has to get to the water tank. It comes off Williamson Valley Road and then goes up along Pioneer Parkway over. So there's an existing 20-foot easement. They'll just be improving that existing road to get to the site.
Can you show me that?
Let's see. Kind of, you see, it's very hard to see on the map. So it comes down right north of the subdivision, and it comes along Williamson Valley Road to the north, and along Pioneer Parkway to the north, and it comes up to the site. Let's see if the other imagery might show it a little bit better. No. So it is right now not a very improved road. The applicant will, as part of their agreement with the State Land Department, will improve that existing easement and access road so they can get their equipment up there and to get there. Will also allow the city better access to our facilities too.
Yesterday, when I went out to review the site, I couldn't find any way up there. It wasn't clear to me what that road would look like or where it's at.
Yeah, there's an existing road there. It's just not maintained at this time. But it comes off Williamson Valley Road. The County Public Works Department, they maintain the Pioneer Parkway, and no new access points are allowed off of Pioneer Parkway.
Doesn't the road start somewhat near the lower left-hand corner of that red area
Yes.
off of Williamson Valley Road?
Yes.
Does that help?
There's a little gate there that you have to get through. So, but the road's already there.
Other questions for staff? Matt, would you mind going over those items we talked about?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, Matthew Pedracki, Deputy City Attorney. Tammy's given me my cheat sheet up on the the wall there, and I've got some other notes here as well. All right, test. Better? Thank you. So what authority does the city of Prescott have to regulate cell towers? So the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996 states that there are two specific purposes regarding the regulation of cell towers. The first is to promote competition and reduce regulation in order to secure lower prices and higher quality services for American telecommunications consumers and encourage the rapid deployment of new telecommunications technologies. And the second one is to preserve the authority of state and local governments, like the city of Prescott, over zoning and land use matters, except in limited circumstances. And those limited circumstances are sort of the 5 exceptions under the Telecommunications Act, which is a federal law that preempts certain parts of local law. The first exception is the regulation, placement and construction and modification of telecommunications facilities may not unreasonably discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services. Local governments are prohibited from favoring one telecommunication provider over another. So the city can't necessarily provide preference, hypothetically here, for Verizon over AT&T. But where we see the majority of litigation under this particular exception is this concept of closing a significant gap in coverage. What does that mean? A significant gap in service, which can be in effect a prohibition of service, exists when a provider is prevented from filling a significant gap in its own service coverage. The provider's application should show how the proposed site would close the gap, supported by data showing coverage afforded by other sites. Now, what does the least intrusive means mean? Under the least intrusive means standard, the provider has the burden of showing the lack of available and technologically feasible alternatives. The provider must make a meaningful comparison of alternative sites or designs and choose the least intrusive site or design. In other words, a provider must ultimately identify the best available and technologically feasible solution for the community. That is the first exception. The second is the regulation of the placement, construction, and modification of telecom facilities shall not prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. A governmental decision that has the intent or effect of banning personal wireless services or facilities violates the act. And that kind of goes towards that first congressional desire to promote telecommunications. The third exception is once an applicant files a request for authorization to place, construct, or modify a telecommunication facility, the government entity shall act on the application, quote, within a reasonable period of time after the request is duly filed, end quote. I got some inquiries regarding the shot clock discussion that we had the last time. There's some federal rules that talk about a presumption of 150 days to act. That is a legal presumption that can be overcome by the city. Should the applicant desire to file a case that argues that we're not acting within a reasonable period of time, the city has the ability to come back and defend that. Now, as you know, at the last meeting, the applicant has said they're willing to kind of take this to the city council and get a substantive decision, and they're not looking at any kind of shot clock inquiry at this point. And there are sufficient facts here, the fact that you had to deal with the state land department, the fact that we have some ongoing negotiations in the height, that kind of militate against a shot clock argument. So I suppose I would say I'm not overly concerned about that, since the parties have generally agreed that they're going to kind of allow this to go forward.
Matt, can you tell us who's the timekeeper?
I'd say the applicant's probably the timekeeper. The general rule is, and I'll just read it to you, the shot clock, this is an order, it's not necessarily a law from the federal government when they create rules, provides 150 days as a reasonable period of time for processing of citing applications. And if the applicant argues that we have failed to act within a reasonable time, they can file a lawsuit making that argument. The city can then defend. But I want to kind of look at the time period that they suggest. And there was a 2014 report that clarified the time within the local government must begin to act runs upon the date the application is first submitted, not when it is deemed complete by the reviewing government. And however, local governments may toll the running of the shot clock if it notifies the applicant within 30 days of the submission that its application is incomplete. And I think there's some facts in this one that there was some back and forth as to when the actual application was complete. And that I would have to defer to Tammy on the actual timing. But I'd say to the extent it behooves, I suppose, the applicant to be the timekeeper. And the fourth exception that the federal government places upon the local government is that the local government may not regulate the placement, construction, or modification of telecom facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such emissions comply with the FCC regulations. Now, at the first meeting, we had quite a few people worried about the effects of radio frequencies on their health. To the extent that the applicant meets the FCC regulations, the government can't really consider those environmental effects or health effects. And that's sort of important, I suppose, at least in perhaps moving this forward to the city council for an ultimate decision. I think at this point, everyone sort of knows that this body is not making the final decision. This will get pushed up to the city council to make the final decision. And the fifth general preemption of the federal government is that any decision made to deny an application must be presented in writing and supported by substantial evidence in the written record. Substantial evidence in this case means more than a mere scintilla. So whatever that means. You want relevant evidence so reasonable minds can accept that an adequate legal conclusion was made. As you know, our local land development code, section 2.4.49, kind of gives you the laundry list of the things you are to consider. And you're going to take all the facts that have been developed in the hearings and all the evidence and testimony that you've heard, and you're going to look to 2.4.49 to make a determination. If that determination is supported by the evidence and the law, then your decision, and ultimately the city council's decision, would be upheld. And this is only for whether or not the council denies the application has to be in writing. If it's approved, it just kind of goes forward. So that's the general gist of kind of the Federal Telecommunications Act and its interplay with the local government.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt before we proceed?
I have a question, Matt. Would be responsible for writing that letter?
Usually it's signed by the mayor. So a lot of times, what I've done in the past for denials is laid out a general, here was the motion made by the council and supported by this type of evidence. And then I attach all of the minutes and all of the evidence to suggest that a reasonable decision was made.
Letter ultimately comes from the result of the council's decision, not ours.
That is correct. The council makes the final decision. You are a recommending body to the council, but they really rely on you to do the legwork here. This is why you've had 3 meetings and you've heard from hundreds of people.
Any further questions for Matt? Okay. Would the applicant like to?
Actually, I have one. Matt, Jim Klazuski. Matt, can a denial be made on impact of real estate values?
I think does the Land Development Code kind of address that a little bit or not? We're going to take a quick look. But, that tends to be a decision more that the council kind of looks at, where you guys really focus a little more on the land use stuff. I would say it's not improper, but it certainly should never be the only reason.
Other questions? Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Good morning, commissioners, for the 3rd time, and thank you very much for hearing us again. Sorry, I'm tall. I do not have a full presentation to make today. Tammy did a wonderful job as usual. I'm just here to say that we have provided everything under the City of Prescott Code 2.2.49 that is required for a special use permit. And we are basically here to answer any and all questions. All due respect to the folks here, we are here to answer questions, and we have made our presentation. We have provided everything that's been asked. And Anil is here again to talk about some of the coverage stuff. And once you ask him to come up, he will be glad to come up and discuss whatever questions you have or whatever questions the folks here have regarding the new coverage areas and the new things that were provided in the packet. Once again, thank you for hearing us again.
Before you go, sir. Yes, sir. We may have a couple questions, if you don't
I
mind.
apologize.
Questions? Tom?
Yeah, as I asked earlier, who's your target customer?
Well, I'm going to have Anil answer those questions. Our target customers are AT&T customers, essentially, for the network. So, but again, Anil can answer that better than I can.
Other questions to the applicant? Jim?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Do I understand that your only connection with AT&T is that they're your customer and you're the pole builder?
Not exactly. We are a vendor to AT&T, specifically to find a property, to lease a portion of a property, to come in front of you guys and to do the building permit. After that, we hand it off to a tower builder or to who's ever going to do the project after we finish the building permit.
Another question is, does the FCC have to approve this tower?
No, but it is registered. Well, technically, yes. It's going to be registered with the FCC on what's called the ASR registration FCC website, where you can go in and look at every tower that's registered with the FCC, find it, put the lats and longs in, look at all the information that's there, the height, how many carriers are on it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it's going to be registered with the FCC. They don't specifically look at it, but you register it with them, and then they put it in their database.
I read somewhere in looking through all of this information was if the FCC has to approve this tower, you are supposed to provide them with hard data.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and we have never received hard data from you.
Hard data that we've registered it with the FCC, or
All we've seen is the maps, and that does not qualify under what I read as hard data.
we wouldn't register it with the FCC until it goes through the process. So we're not at that point yet.
So yeah, I want to, one more time, I want to try this.
Yes, sir.
Is it safe to say that AT&T is targeting Deepwell Ranch?
Morning, sir. How are you guys? We are potentially any AT&T customers, existing AT&T customers, potential new AT&T customers, and also FirstNet customers. I understand that the town of Prescott right now, some of the town of Prescott is not necessarily a FirstNet customer. That is not to say that they may not eventually become FirstNet customer. And we also, a lot of federal agencies are FirstNet customers, and all that highways and stuff over there are also, which is being accessed by, I mean, a lot of AT&T customers all around the country, who come here during vacations. Anybody who comes from the valley. So all these AT&T potential future customers are all targeted here, sir,
So
including the ranch. Nothing against.
can you give me a simple yes or no?
Yeah, they're one of the potential customers. Yes.
So AT&T is targeting Deepwell Ranch. That's the customer base they're going after.
It's one of them. It's not the only. They're not the only ones, but it's one of them. Yes. I'm sorry to say. I mean, do you? Maybe I should not ask this. Can I know the intent of the question, please, if you don't mind, sir?
You've answered my question. Thank you.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Other questions?
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
What is the diameter of the pole? I know they're tapered, but in this particular case, what do you know the diameter of the pole?
Which pole they're going to choose, so I don't know.
Right now, we are in the zoning process. Once we get your approval, then we'll have to engineer the pole to make sure that it stands the vagaries of nature and based on what kind of soil it is, and it has to be engineered, sir.
Well, what typically would be that diameter? I did some research on that, and I
Yes,
found
sir.
that there are tables that tell you the average diameter of the poles depending on the height and what they're going to hold. And I'm just curious, if you don't know that, why?
The height is only one of the criteria. You're right, Commissioner, but the height is only one of the criteria. The other criteria is how much wind is over there, how much wind loading is going to be on the pole, and also most certainly, if additional and how deep we need to go in the ground based on the kind of soil. So that's just one of the criteria, sir.
Well,
have
I
to test
guess
for
one
all-
of the
we do
reasons
soil
I'm
testing and
asking this is because there's been a lot of objection to this from a visual standpoint. And I think, to me anyway, it's been misrepresented how big that pole is. In other words, the sim pictures seem to show that pole almost as big as that tower that's existing. And that tower that's existing is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 feet on a side. And the research that I did, I found that the pole for an 80-foot pole is typically about 3 foot in diameter at the base and about 2 foot diameter at the top. And so I was curious if you had anything that was going to tell us how those pictures are actual representative of the pole size.
So I let him deal with the sim pictures, but you're absolutely right, sir. The present tower is a different kind of tower. It's very wide at the bottom. That's not the tower we're proposing here. Our tower is going to be much more slimmer, close to the dimensions you have mentioned, more like 3 feet at the bottom, 2 feet at the top, more close to the dimensions, not exactly what 6 feet or 8 feet dimensions that the present tower has, which is a pretty old tower. And I don't know when the tower was designed or what are the basis of the tower, but our tower is going to be a monopole, which is going to be way slimmer than the existing tower.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to see again, if you could, if the staff could, if they're controlling the visual, see the coverage area difference between existing and what's proposed.
Do you want the one
So
for 80
the-
feet?
This is the map of the coverage without the tower. So red, good coverage, green, blue, poor coverage.
Right.
So this is with a 100-foot tower that was proposed originally. And then this shows the coverage area for an 80-foot tower, then a 60-foot, then a 35-foot.
Other questions?
I have one. Jim Klazuski. I didn't see in our current packet the request to see alternative sites and what the coverage from those alternative sites would be.
We don't have. We do not have. I have alternative sites here that we looked at previously. We do not have maps for those and what the coverage area because we cannot use them. So we cannot create a coverage map. It wouldn't work. So, but I do have a list if anyone wants it or anyone wants me to read it of the alternative sites that we did look into. We looked at several and none of them worked from a coverage perspective. The reason this works the best, again, is because it's on the mountaintop. It's surrounded, except to the south, by non-residential sites. And so this was chosen, plus it's up on the hills, which gives us maximum coverage objective. So, but if anybody wants to see the alternative sites, I have them right here.
So you did look at alternative sites?
Yes, sir.
Roughly how many? Roughly.
We looked at, well, 3 that I have here, but we, on the map-wise, we probably looked at around 8.
Okay.
But these were the 3 that we considered that we gave to Anil to run his propagation, and none of them worked. They were too far away from the coverage objective. They were too low, a variety. They were essentially too far away from the coverage objective. So,
Other questions?
I would like that to be submitted, please, the list.
sure. Where would you like me to submit it?
Other questions? I have one. Sir,
Yes, sir. Sorry.
you're going to be improving the existing road, and improving will be just taking the existing road and like getting rid of potholes, make it smoother and so forth.
Yes.
Are you planning to build more road there or extremely widen that road?
No, not at all. In fact, it's just right for a truck now, but it's got some conclaves in it. It's a difficult road, so it's just a matter of smoothing it out, adding some things to it and making just a smoother road to get up there. You guys use it all the time. The state land department uses it all the time, but it's really pretty bad. So it'll wreck your car if you try to drive up there, unless you have an SUV or a truck.
Other questions? Tom?
Can you describe the traffic, the kind of traffic that'll be on that road?
For us, that would be maybe once a month to go up to service the site. It's probably more like every 2 months. Now, if there's an emergency, obviously, if something goes down, it's going to be an emergency to get up there and get it back on air. So,
When I look at the site, I see that there's a diesel generator as backup power for the radio gear. Mm-hmm. How often do you have to fill the gas tank up for that diesel generator?
well, I don't know how much the city of Prescott does it. Well, I don't know what would he do it now? Probably once a year or something.
So the backup power is only for backup. So unless we actually run out of fuel, I mean, it's a routine maintenance, make sure everything is good. Probably 6 months to 1 year, we'll just keep checking it. Unless the power runs out and you use the amount, I mean, we don't necessarily need to fill it up again. So, yeah. I mean, the backup power is part of the FCC mandate on us to do it because of the Katrina Commission and stuff. These are considered, cell towers are considered essential infrastructures, and if they go down, all the communication is lost during emergencies. So that's why we have backup power on all of these towers. Somebody asked to look at the road, sir. I got it on the Google Maps. If somebody wants to check it, the road is actually on the Google Maps, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
Jim Klazuski.
So,
I noticed that your other two sites that were presented to us were southeast of this proposed site, but it looks like most of your coverage area that you're trying to gain is to the north of Pioneer Parkway.
yes, sir.
Were there not any available possibilities to go north?
No, sir.
So when you look at a site, is it a site that's already owned by another carrier, or is there possibility for land lease somewhere else?
So we look at all possibilities for a site. So we don't, when we are looking for a site, we don't go predetermined to actually say this is the kind of site we want. So just for the record, I mean, I'm the RF engineer for the whole Arizona, New Mexico market, in charge of all new towers for the market. Right now, handling 200 sites, and they come in all sorts of flavors. The least path of resistance we always want to do is we want to use an existing tower. We're not necessarily going out looking to put an existing tower, because from an operational perspective, cost perspective, getting the site faster, and it's always profitable for us to use existing tower. And I mean, we are conscious about the community and with environment as much as everybody else is. So trying to build a new tower is our last resort. So a lot of times we also look at, from a cost perspective too. I mean, why not use existing steel? It's much faster to build. It's much more easy to get zoning permit on it, and then just get it because it has power, it has backhaul, it's everything. The infrastructure is already there. You're just adding one more thing. So that's our path of least resistance. That's a path of getting it site faster on air. That's a path of least cost, most cost efficient for us. So we go through the whole thing, existing towers, then try to see, what are the next alternatives. And then the last alternative for us is go it from ground up.
I am not sure, but the community just north of Outer Loop Road in Williamson Valley on the top of that hill has a number of towers. I don't know whether they're just radio towers. I'm assuming some of those are cell towers. Do you know whether or not that location, because there's several towers, the community is I think it's
Williamson Valley, up north.
yeah, up north.
That's so the pine tree you see on the hill when you go up north on Williamson Valley, that is an AT&T tower. So across from the country store, that's what they're trying to connect with. So when you look at the existing coverage map, so the green area is just south of that tower. So that's what they're trying to connect up with, is that tower to the north. There are other towers on the hill next to it, but that's the AT&T tower.
Thank you.
So,
Other
Tammy,
questions?
yeah, Tammy, while you're there, can you show me again what 60 feet gets you in terms of coverage?
That's a 60-foot.
Okay, and remind me again, if 35 feet really is 55 feet. A 35-foot tower can, at the will of the applicant, increase that height by 20 feet. Is that true?
If they choose to later come in to increase the height per federal regulations, they can increase through the 74, 60.
So 35 is really 55 at the end of the day.
Right now, you'd be approving if it's 35 feet, it's allowed by right. So, but right now they're asking for an 80-foot tower, which I've never, in my years of working with cell towers in the area, we've never seen anybody come in to do that, because the engineering required to add that would probably be more significant. So I've never seen anybody come in all my years working with the county in this area to anybody do that. Use that provision.
So, Commissioner, I think I kind of trying to get the intent of the question. Correct me if I'm wrong, CSR. So, when we are trying to engineer a tower, since we are the first carrier here, so when we are the first carrier here, we try to engineer it at the height we want it. What you're talking to, sir, is if a future carrier wants to come and they believe that they cannot go below us, the coverage is going to be adverse. It's not going to satisfy them. They want to go above us is when they actually are going to go through and ask for approval on that. But as now you stand, the height you approve is the height we are going to go at, sir. So we are not trying to circumvent the process where you approve us for 50 feet and we go and build a 70 feet 6 months later. That's not happening.
Tom?
That's right.
Oh, I'll wait for Tammy to get done. Tammy, I have a question. If this tower were to be located at the top of the hill and at 35 feet, it would actually be higher coverage, the kind of coverage that they'd be looking for. And the question is, would we even be here?
No.
No, sir.
So if the applicant came in and said, I want to go at the top of the hill with a 35-foot tower, that's just allowed by right.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you both on this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
I'm going to open it up for the public. And before I do, please remember, these are what we can judge upon. We cannot do anything beyond that. We're going to continue with the limitation of 3 minutes per person on it. We are looking for new information. We prefer not to have things that have been presented to us already or emailed to us or sent to us because we read our packets beforehand. So I will open it up for the public for new information. Sarah?
Deborah Miller.
Deborah Miller, 1062 Yavapai Hills, Prescott. And I did submit a full memo and full exhibits to you last time. However, those have never been published. I also submitted an additional letter to you that's never been published for this meeting. So I request that all the missing documents that were submitted for the November 9th meeting that weren't able to be published in time get published ASAP because the public also deserves to know everything. And I did write a pretty lengthy letter, and I am going to go through a few of the things because the public hasn't seen it. First off, though, I want to address the dirt road. I did measure it with Ken. It's about 11 to 13 feet. It's extremely overgrown. Trees, if it goes to 20 feet, trees would have to be taken out. And I would say that the key thing here is, where is the documentation? There's been no documentation about what that 20-foot road is going to look like. I know what the 11-foot road currently looks like. I don't know what the 20-foot road looks like. And there's absolutely no agreement with the state land development. I requested and I have given this to you in the packet, but the approval that the state land development gave for this actually was based on some incorrect information. First off, the question was, is the zoning of the parcel compatible with your use? The answer was, yes, it's compatible. I'm sorry, but asking for a special use permit means that answer should have been no. List all improvements. They did not include the 20-foot road. What are all the co-locators by name, et cetera, et cetera? What they said was, there are no co-locators proposed for the tower apart from AT&T's use of the facilities. I'm sorry, but in the first two hearings, they said there would be 3 sets of antennas, but none of their diagrams have ever shown that. So this is what the Arizona state land development made the approval based on, and I don't say anything different. Now, in regards to the diameter of the pole, where's your documentation? Ask for the documentation. You have no documentation. And when you're
30 seconds.
When you're going into the photo sims, I'm going to say you have to ignore them. By law, you have to ignore them. They have been ruled inadmissible by other courts. And with the lighting required by the airport, where is your documentation? I will tell you that I had an email exchange with John Kubrick, and 4 hours after the last hearing, he emailed me saying, the applicant said no lighting was required. John Kubrick, 4 hours after the hearing, emailed me, said, yes, there'd be lighting required. I had an additional email exchange. If there's no lighting required, where is the documentation? They still have to provide an FAA study saying yes or no. That is required. That's in the documentation. So there's a lot of other items that are here. In terms of no alternative site analyses, you still don't have the required documentation on those site analyses. Today is the first time they said, oh, here are the other ones, but they're all to the southeast. And where are the other ones that say, with documentation, with hard data? That means drop call records. That means drive test records. That's what the FCC defines right now as hard data. That hard data needed to have been submitted with those alternative site analyses. I can't name site number 2 and number 3 that was being considered. I can't address that as a member of the public, to say that's I can't do my own research on it to say, hey, that's acceptable, that isn't acceptable. You have to ask for documentation. If you don't have it, an undocumented conclusion, an undocumented answer is not an answer, and there's going to be a lot of gotchas afterwards. So thank you, and I really thank you guys for, and Susan as well, who's in here. I thank you for reading everything that I submitted. I know it was a lot, and I really acknowledge your attention to detail with it. And I am 100%, by the way, opposed to this application. It's inconsistent, it's inaccurate, there's omissions, and you have so many reasons to be able to deny it legally. So thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Ann Moore.
Good morning and Merry Christmas to all of you. I would like to commend the commission.
Excuse me, ma'am. We need to have your name and address, please.
Ann Moore, 1397 Pinion Shadow Drive. I'd like to commend the commission for all the time you've taken to address this issue and to listen to all of us over the course of the 3 meetings that have been held on this. I know you've taken a lot of time to look at all the data, and we really appreciate that. Some of the concerns that were brought up here today, I share with you. The 20 feet that the contractor can add to the height of that pole at their will is concerning. And if you do put a 35-foot tower there, they can go up to 55 feet. What about the tower that already exists to the north? Why not increase the height of that tower to increase the coverage? There is coverage in that area. It is not a communications wasteland. Verizon has coverage there. Other contractors have coverage there. It's not like you can't make a cell phone call out there. There's going to be significant development with Deepwell Ranch, with Stringfield Ranch. There are going to be thousands of homes that will be impacted by this tower. And the tower is not a slight thing to look at. There's already the tank and a tower out there that we have to deal with. If they go to 25 feet, this whole 3 months of activity has been moot. 35 feet becomes 55 feet, gives you significant coverage. Thank you again for your time and attention to this matter.
Thank you, ma'am. Sarah?
Patrick Pearson.
Hello, I'm Patrick Pearson, 8780 Oak Forest Drive in Granite Oaks. I have a lot of concerns regarding all the measurements that have come forth in the past 2 meetings that seem to be incorrect and that apparently they haven't been addressed. It's important to know the exact measurements. Everything that's taken from engineering drawings are not engineering drawings necessarily because there's no legends. This has not been corrected. There seems to be no legends, and it was presented verbally. The water tank fence line is 60 feet rather than 40 feet. I mean, I don't need to go through Common Core to figure out in my head that's nearly 700% error. There's a 6.5 to 10 foot, not a 100 foot elevation drop. That turns out to be 1,000% to 1,300% error. The contour lines on the map are 1 foot, not 20 foot. We're getting up into 2,000% error rate there. At both hearings and in answering questions, it was said that the fence is 400 feet from the proposed construction. The elevation drop is 100 feet, and the contour lines on the map are 20 feet. When asked about this again on November 9th, it was said that that the applicant was not certain. The planner gave possibly conflicting information as far as I can remember, and we need to know what the proper application will be. I know that Ken came up to the commissioners with the applicant's own map, which was expanded to a larger size and showed more accurate information. The question is, are the photo sims based on the correct or the incorrect measurements? That makes a big difference. It is vital that the commissioners are being given the correct information and accurate information to make a proper decision. The lighting required by the airport is another question that vacillated. As previously mentioned, excuse me? As previously mentioned, John Kerbick had some correspondence with Deb Miller, and there was no answer to the question at the time. It turns out the airport would have to ask for a FAA 7460-1 study to be done to confirm whether a light is needed or not on top of the tower. It is apparent that SmartLink did not have any conversations with John Kubrick regarding this when researching. Ask SmartLink for the documentation and find out now ahead of time what is required for a full extended height, not 80 feet but 100 feet. At this point, it might be not 60 feet but 80 feet. Would you approve this SUP if it had a red light blinking? All these people standing behind me who live in the area sure don't want to be watching that light blink when they're at dinner every night. There's so many inconsistencies. At the October 12th hearing, they said they could put up a red blinking light, although they said they didn't need to be done. Student flights in the area also go over that hill. Ken had a count that he mentioned before of air traffic that goes over that hill in that area. First responders.
Sir, we're beyond the 3 minutes. How much more time do you think you need?
Okay,
How much more time do you think you need?
that's it. It's fine.
Well, thank you, sir.
Heidi Ramakel.
Hi, Commissioners. Merry Christmas. I'm Heidi Remacle. I work at 113 West Goodwin in Prescott, and I'm a real estate agent with Realty Executives, Northern Arizona, or Arizona Territory, sorry. First of all, propagation maps. You can't have it both ways. If you're required to follow FCC guidelines, then you can't pick and choose which FCC guidelines you will follow and which you will ignore. The FCC was asked for years to update their guidelines. They were taken to court, and in August 2021, the FCC lost the case. The court said FCC had acted in an arbitrary and capricious manner in ignoring the tens of thousands of pages of evidence submitted to them and not updating their guidelines. Over 2 years later, the FCC has still not updated their guidelines. I get it. It's about due process. But when they update their guidelines, you will follow them. Follow the guidelines that are out there. The FCC requires hard data. Hard data comes from dropped call records and actual drive test data. None have been provided. Propagation maps can easily be manipulated to create over-exaggeration in need of and significant gaps. Well, in August 2020, the FCC issued a final rule requiring providers to submit detailed data about their propagation models. Also, in March 2023, there is a Data Act that was passed by Congress. SmartLink's own project narrative states that the propagation maps are not accurate. Read all their disclaimers. Approximation, actual coverage may differ. AT&T does not guarantee coverage. The coverage maps are not intended to show actual customer performance. By its own admission, the propagation maps in SmartLink's application are useless presented today. No matter at what height, they do not confirm the FCC guidelines. When the RF engineer was asked about this on November 9th, his response was, "The maps are the data." What? This is not sufficient explanation. Whatever the FCC requires, the City of Prescott should require. SmartLink has failed to provide a shred of acceptable evidence. And if you are required to follow FCC guidelines, then follow all of them.
30 seconds.
Lower property values. There are many experienced real estates, I'm one of them, real estate agents, who have submitted letters, I also did, that this proposed cell tower would have serious negative impacts. This is valid evidence that cannot be ignored. What SmartLink provided for studies is not applicable to Prescott. In another email sent in, there are 9 attachments with studies and articles addressing real estate property values.
That's time.
I just want to add, please consider these facts and findings in your decision and do not be blindsided by the vague facts and data you hear. Do the right thing, listen to your constituents. Vote no on the special use permit application from SmartLink. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Jim Newber.
My name is Jim Newber. I live at 1439 Evening Shade in Southview. This whole thing was written partially by me and partially by Dale Stortz. She can't be here, so I said I'd do it. But a lot of it is repetition because you guys know, or even though you don't want to admit probably, that these fine gentlemen have their act together in diversionary tactics. Okay? I've been fighters for 20 years. I know them very well. Okay. Bottom line is, we don't want this to happen. Hilltop, where we're at, it's actually called Tewksbury. It's a prehistoric Indian ruins. There's no tower going up there. You want to talk to the tribe, and they'll tell you, don't touch it. Don't even walk up there, although we get a lot of traffic up there. So we've shown pictures and a lot of comments about the coverage and where you can see it. So every time we come to this meeting, we're missing data. They can provide it, but they haven't. Public safety, the road they're talking about is really just a trail, okay? That's one of the sites that I inspect periodically as a historic representative for the state. It's just a trail. We don't want that. Bottom line is, the code says it's got to be harmonious with the community and the surroundings, and it is not. The code says we can defeat it. Vote no, or we'll be back.
Thank you, sir. Sarah?
Kenneth Golner.
Hi, my name is Ken Golner, 110 North Summit Ave, Prescott, Arizona. SmartLink did not take the photos from actual homes or neighborhood spots where the most serious adverse aesthetic impacts would be. Today, they claimed that it's not possible to take such photos because you allegedly must be on private property. This is not true. I took photos, which I submitted and showed to you at the last meeting, in the several neighborhoods around the area to the north and northwest, without crossing on any private property. You have a map there. It shows some of the points of the photos previously submitted. I have one of those photos today, which shows I believe it's the Longview area. Anyway, yeah. SmartLink's photos were shown primarily from areas around the bottom of the hill of this proposed tower, looking upwards to the top of the tower from a steep, low angle. This both obscures part of what would be visible as compared to the view from further away in the surrounding neighborhoods, and makes this proposed tower look smaller than it would from areas that are actually further away, yet viewed from angles that are more at eye level from those neighborhoods. The photos are taken at such a wide angle and low magnification that they do not represent what the human naked eye of a person standing at such a location around these neighborhoods would actually see. The human eye sees images at a magnification equivalent size about at 70 millimeter range as viewed with a camera. The photos provided by the applicant are zoomed out or otherwise utilize a wide-angle lens with such a low magnification that the simulated tower presented in their photos seems so tiny and artificially appears to be barely visible. This is in contrast to the more realistic photos that I and other residents have previously submitted that incorporates the realistic magnification of 70 millimeters to show how the site would actually look to the naked eye if you were standing at that location. The photos we submitted were taken from areas throughout the surrounding residential neighborhoods. Because of this, SmartLink's photos are deceptive, and courts have ruled that deceptive presentations with photos are inherently defective and should be disregarded. Based on the above reasons, this application should be immediately denied. I implore you, the Planning and Zoning Commission, to vote no for this application and any special use permit. Please see the rest of my letter for further information that I have submitted. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, sir. Sarah?
Richard Lokes.
Good morning. My name is Richard Lokes. I live at 1494 Southview Drive in Prescott. And I want to wish everyone a happy holidays. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm in opposition to the tower SUP request by SmartLink. As had been stated by every community member that has spoken, this tower and its 20-foot wide road and 30 by 30-foot compound, which was never mentioned by the applicant, will not be harmonious with the surrounding of Indian Hill. It has also been stated that this is a lookout built by local Indians which contain artifacts. Has anyone considered the seismic effects to the lookout formation? Should there be a study to determine if the rocks can be withstand from the construction of the tower, road, and compound? The Indian lookout stands over my backyard. If the rocks tumble down the hill, there are multiple homes that could be hit. Who would be liable for this destruction? Would it be the city, since you would be the entity that approved the tower to be built? Please don't destroy Indian Hill. I urge you to have AT&T look at non-residential and non-historical sites to find another carrier tower that they can join use. The Prescott and Land Development Code should be enforced to protect Indian Hill and the surrounding communities from this permit request. If they want a tower there, they should abide by the zoning rules established, 35-foot tower and no to 20-foot road. And there has also been a failure by AT&T to answer questions at previous meetings regarding optional areas for another tower
and the area road access is a trail at best. If you go up there and look at it, you can barely walk it, let alone take a truck up there, or if you have to expand it to 20, 30 feet, which they've said they're approximately situations where they have to expand it and grade it, that's going to definitely impact the area. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Sarah?
John Moore.
Good morning. My name is John Moore. I live at 1397 Pinion Shadow in Southview. I'm not going to bore you with my entire letter that I wrote, but just a couple things. Talking about the real estate part of this discussion, there's a real estate survey that was conducted, and the results show that 94% said a nearby cell tower or group of antennas would negatively impact interest in a property or the price they would be willing to pay for it. 79% said that under no circumstances would they ever purchase or rent a property within the few blocks of the cell tower or antennas. This, along with up to a 20% property value reduction, becomes really a massive wealth transfer from the residents of Prescott to AT&T. One of the, AT&T has been asked for much information. One was, where was the alternate site analysis? Well, today, after 3 months of meetings, finally they've turned something in. And what Mr. Young said, there needs to be a meaningful comparison. Well, after 3 months, we finally got a meaningful comparison. Why did it take 3 months? I mean, they've been stonewalling on this. If anyone is running out the clock, it's AT&T with their lackluster response to very specific requests. And, here we are in this situation 3 months later. One thing from my letter I wanted to point out, and one of the housing projects that you approved 3 months ago in the airport impact zone didn't allow for landscaping to be taller than a soccer net. And here we are talking about an 80-foot tower that's really probably eventually going to be a 100-foot tower. I don't think it's safe. We've got the airport pilots, students flying over this as a landmark. I don't think it's safe for the community at all. And just to close, I'm just asking the commission, please do not punt this to the city council with an approval. Protect the residents of Prescott and deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sarah?
Linda Gray.
Good morning, commissioners. My name is Linda Gray, and I live in Southview. Still, so many unanswered questions, such as why hasn't SmartLink provided a corrected topography map? Where's the documentation from the airport that it will require a red light? There's no documentation. Due to the applicant's many omissions and failures to answer commission's questions, they have shown great disrespect to all of you. Flight safety, mapping deception, lack of photos of current and proposed homes that will see the tower, the flashing red light, alternate site analysis. The information should have been included in the original, and you just got part of it today. Why is the current on-site government tower adequate for public safety, but the for-profit applicant wants their tower much higher? Why can't they add on to the one out on North Williamson Valley if they want higher? Where's the drawing model of the other carriers the applicant talked about putting up on the tower? In 2020, the FCC rules required the applicant to submit detailed data about their propagation model. The applicant's request is totally lacking these details. Adverse aesthetic impacts are proper legal grounds which a government may deny the zoning application. To me, it's also disrespectful to Kayla's Hands Memorial Park Playground. Also, for the multitude of teams and sporting events that come from far and wide for tournaments at Kubler and Pioneer Park, the pickleball records, the Brownlow and the Prescott Circle Trails, it all impacts them and takes away from the natural beauty, and we don't want it. Government includes reimbursement through eminent domain laws, but when it comes to a corporate for-profit company, there is no reimbursement for the taking of private property owners' devaluation. Might as well put up the blue light special notifying the private property owners of their discounted values on their homes or their sale at all. County Assessor Judge Simmons states property values will go down, which means there will be less tax revenue to support fire and police. Which do you think the taxpayers want? A tower or public safety? I think that's obvious. Please vote no.
Thank you, ma'am. Sarah?
Phil Davis.
Good morning. My name is Phil Davis, 2647 Country Park Drive here in Prescott. So I'd like to also say good morning to Mayor Good, Councilman Russin and Gambogi, and also Senator Gray. So, gentlemen, we've got a crib notes I've provided for you, and on the back of it, if you could reference the map. So this map was generated with Sartopo software. This is used by law enforcement and search and rescue. I like to be as exact as possible. The pink areas, that's line of sight from this tower. The dots you'll see, those are residences. So I've got a 1 mile radius circle around the tower. So those residences in Longview, there's 122 to be exact. They'll be able to see this tower. West of Williamson Valley Road, 160 residences, they'll see this tower. Southview, on the west end, 23 houses. On the east end, another 23 houses. The Crossings, 15 houses. Jack Drive, 22 houses. So that's a distance of 880 yards. That's half a mile for visibility. So that's 243 houses. So the direct impact I'd like to talk about, that zip code 86305, average value 788,000 per house. 243 houses, that's a lot of real estate. If I was sitting in your shoes, let's be super conservative. Let's say 2% depreciation on houses that are looking at this tower with a big old blinking red light. They can also see the water tank too, but that's existing. So 2% valuation loss comes out to $15,000 per household. So that's $4 million immediate impact being conservative, just at a 2% depreciation. So on the front page, I've got a cheat sheet for you, and I've provided that to meet the substantial evidence rule. So I've got land development code criteria, weighted review criteria, and then also special use criteria. Table Mountain, yes, it does have AT&T towers. Are they 3G, 5G, 4G? I don't know. It's lousy reception. I've driven out there. I've talked to the fire department chiefs at Station 57 and also at Talking Rock. It's really bad reception from AT&T, even directly below the tower.
30
seconds. So, Mickey, we've got so we have SmartLink. Yeah, they're brokers, they're middlemen. You've asked them 3 times for hard data. They're not giving you the data right now. They're not giving the public the data. The least obtrusive means test would be Tower Mountain, or you've got state land parcels all up and down Williamson Valley Road. So if you want point of service north of Pioneer Parkway, that's your answer, is go to point of service north of Pioneer Parkway.
That's time.
So any of those spots, thank you. So I'm asking you to deny the special use permit and pass it on to City Council, and Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Sarah?
Amy J. Wing.
Hello. I believe there are many strong reasons to deny this
Ma'am,
permit.
Excuse me, we need to have your name and address.
240 South McCormick Street in Prescott. Both based on the local code and FCC requirements, it appears there's very strong reasons to deny this permit. First and foremost, the very premise of this, the gap in coverage, has not been clearly established for any of us to really see. I thought the city and the applicant were going to really check with the first responders in particular to find out what is needed or not. The no alternatives analysis required by FCC has not been really examined fully, if it just came in today. And how could you determine what would be least intrusive as far as the siting of this without a substantial alternatives analysis? The maps not having hard data as FCC requires, that's a very serious piece of this. I'm concerned about the safety of the pilots and the students, as others are, and the no documentation about red blinking light, which it sounds like would be needed. What about the safety of the fall zone if this tower, something were to happen? I'm concerned about 80 feet turning into 100 feet by other carriers, which sounds like it would be allowed under the way things are. The misrepresentation of the visual impact, not only affecting the Southview community, but other communities, the parks and trails, Pioneer Park, thousands of homes being visually impacted, and then the homeowners not having a way to recover their lost property value. Overall, the application is incomplete with inaccuracies and missing this hard data. I urge you to be responsive to us as constituents, all having spoken against this.
30 seconds.
Thank you, ma'am. Sarah, do we
Dale.
have more? Okay.
Dale Webb.
Good morning. Dale Webb, 401 Cabaret Street, Prescott. I had a cousin 10 years ago that was a specialist that worked with Calquam in San Diego. He was on the original 5G testing system. When he was up there doing it, he saw first time activating the 5G technology, he literally saw birds and bees fall dead to the ground. I want to read you something really quick, please. 5G is already being banned in many places recently within the last 3 years, from Brussels, Netherlands, Switzerland, Ireland, Germany, technology, the UK, the US, and Australia. 5G is not just a generation of mobile technology after 4G. It is a radical entire new technology. It goes from 24 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz, which is the exact same amount of hertz that is used in active denial systems. In other words, crowd control that you may have seen on the news in Europe, all over Europe, and to deal with crowds. Many intense burning, pain sensations, blah, blah, blah. Here's just a picture I took. I just found about this last night at midnight, and I had stuff like this on my computer 5 years ago. People are all around the United States, all around the world, are protesting 5G around school districts, within schools, okay? Here is the most important thing you guys will ever hear about this. You won't find this anywhere except on Rumble or BitChute.com. Go in there and look at 5G, and you'll see all the studies by scientists, how this is bad. I'll just leave it at that. And even on my computer back with when I was finding out what my cousin told me in 2018. 44 reasons to believe cell phones can cause cancer. And this is with what? The old 2G technology, and now they want to do 5G. 44 reasons to believe cell phones can cause cancer. If you look at this from a moral objective, I ask you to please consider this from a moral objective. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Before we go into discussion among the commission members here, I want to thank you all for attending and presenting your thoughts. I know this has been a long process, but we want to make sure that we get the information we need to make a decision that we're comfortable with. And again, thank you for attending on this. Going to open it up for the commission members to make comments on this. We can either go down the row or just put your hand up and we'll go from there.
Jim Whiting. Well, this has been a controversial thing for, I think, all of us. And I really respect the people that, live in the area there. But I guess my caveat on that is that you probably had that existing tower and a 2 million gallon water tank there when you moved in. This tower doesn't appear to me to make much more of an imprint. I took the contour map and figured out the elevations of the tower, and the base tower, I guess, is 12 feet taller than the existing one. The existing one is wider than the pole tower is going to be. I've walked all around that area, and I, like one of the other members here, couldn't find enough access to get in there to walk up there because that gate's locked over there. There's been a lot of things said about the road, and I think that is an important thing, but it's been misconstrued as a 20-foot road. It's a 20-foot right-of-way. And obviously that road that exists now was there to provide access for construction of the water tank, construction of the other tower, and the maintenance of both of them. So obviously the road is adequate. And I think that a lot of misconception has been that it's going to be like a, Pioneer Parkway. But it's not. The inconsequential, or not inconsequential, what was the one where the comments that were made about how the impact of the unintended impact, that's what I'm looking for. Well, I know that the mountain didn't fall down on your houses when they put up a water tank that's 12,000 square feet, and holds 2 million gallons of water. And that was a lot more construction than the 30 by 30 area that they're talking about, which is 900 square feet. So while I appreciate the idea that you're looking for all the reasons that you can find for this, I just think that, as we pointed out, this is what we have to go by. And none of those things are up there. So I appreciate all the work that you've done, and I found it very interesting, and I learned some things from it. But it's our job is strictly from a land development standpoint, and we just have to decide whether or not we allow the tower. What they do with the tower and everything else is beyond our purview. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Tom?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I want to assure the members of the audience, public, the applicant, and my fellow commissioners that while my appointment was being pending, I certainly reviewed the record on this, and I also observed the last meeting, and I've reviewed the minutes of the meeting. And I've also met with staff to discuss the matter, and so I'm fairly well familiar with the issue. So even though I'm new, I've done my research and I've heard you, and I've read all your comments and the backup material, and I tend to lean towards Mr. Whiting's comments, and I'm glad you brought up the 20-foot right-of-way issue. That was a concern of mine. And I think the knotty problem here, too, is that it's state land and it's zoned residential. The potential for further development is still there. And so I'm going to continue to listen and learn from the other commissioners, but that's where I stand right now.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to go next?
Sure. This is very emotional and heartfelt. I mean, the testimony of everybody here has made it very clear to all of us where you all stand and where you want this tower. I kind of agree with Jim, though. There's certain things that we can take into account and certain things we can't. Ultimately, the filter through which I pass this decision is that I imagine myself sitting in a courtroom and saying to either an attorney or judge or jury or whatever it's going to be, why am I going to deny something? Why am I going to deny another tower where there's already a tower and where there's already a million-gallon water tank up there? There's already things up there. The whole goal of locating facilities, towers, has been to try to co-locate those towers with other towers in other areas. And I can't justify not putting a tower up there, another tower up there, because the area is already developed with those towers. So given that, I as much as I'd like to be able to say, yeah, I hear y'all, and I want to vote no because y'all want me to vote no, but in good conscience, I can't do that. I just can't do that. Thank you.
Tom?
Tom 3. Boy, this special use permit is not about whether there's a tower up there or not. It's about the incremental height that's required to improve AT&T's business case. Okay, they're looking for height to get better coverage. It's that simple. So, listening to this, I have two problems. Number one is that the lack of objective, what I call DOD, directly observable data. And you folks have pointed that out. There's the absence of objective data. The other problem I have is this idea of this application has a whole lot of want, a lot more want than what they really need. So when I balance this all out, I'm inclined to go with the existing zoning for that area.
Jim?
Question maybe to the staff or the applicant regarding the road. What would the intention be to take a road that right now is, I assume, a dirt road or gravel road? Are we looking at asphalt? Are we looking at concrete? If we're looking at concrete, are we looking at colored concrete to blend with the mountain?
I really can't answer that completely right now, but normally in these situations, we don't put concrete on it. We don't asphalt it. We just improve the existing dirt road. And that's more than likely what we're going to do. In fact, I'd say 99% that's what's going to happen.
Thank you. I have a couple concerns. One is that I know that we asked for more data on the other sites that you considered. And although we today got location information, I was expecting that we would also have you demonstrate to us that what the coverage map will look like for those areas, and that was not provided. So it's hard for me to then say whether or not the alternatives sites, how they compare with where you want to be. I'm also concerned when I look at the coverage map provided that I don't see, to me, in my mind, a significant difference between 80-foot and a 60-foot tower. That's also a little bit of a concern. It's concerned that if we give you 80-foot tower, I understand that it gives you the ability to go to 100 feet, which takes us right back to square one. So at this point in time, I have other reasons for concern about impacts to the community. And among others, the potential impact on property values. As a realtor, I know exactly how that's working. So at this point in time, I probably would not favor passing this motion.
This, please, no. Applications like this are difficult for us. Most of them that we come in, we have a wide variety of things that we can consider in making our decision. An application like this, we are limited on what we can consider on this. My personal opinion, I think this is something that I would approve on this because of the items we can look at. And I'm not disregarding what you are presenting to us, but what we can look at, we have no reason to decline this. So Sarah, would you call the roll for the vote, please?
Oh, this should be a motion?
No motion on the floor.
Sorry.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman. I move to recommend approval of SUP 23-002, allowing for an 80-foot monopole.
We have a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Sarah?
Commissioner Riley,
Approve.
Commissioner Whiting,
Approve.
Commissioner Hutchison,
I disapprove.
Commissioner Klazewski,
Disapprove.
Commissioner Davis,
Approve.
Commissioner Michaelman.
Approve.
Passes 4-2.
Again, thank you all for attending. We appreciate that. We appreciate your taking time and effort to talk to us. Any staff updates? Any staff updates?
Okay. Staff has no updates, but we hope you have a happy holidays and Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year.
Okay.
And a Merry Christmas back at you.
Yes.
Tammy, can you tell us what these are for?
Meeting adjourned.